All right, get ready, because we're jumping headfirst into the world of Judge Judy's. You sent over that YouTube compilation, and wow, these cases are something else. I mean, we've got 5 to get through, and they range from, like, little squabbles over candy bars to some pretty serious accusations.
Yeah, it's always fascinating to see what lands people in court, isn't it? But what really gets me is how Judge Judy takes these small-scale disagreements and uses them to teach these big life lessons, like especially when it comes to personal responsibility.
Totally. And it's not even just her rulings, it's like her whole presence. How does she pull off being both hilarious and totally intimidating at the same time?
Well, think about it. She was a family court judge for years, so she's pretty much seen it all. And she doesn't sugarcoat anything. I think in a way she's become this cultural icon because she just cuts through all the BS and makes people own up to their actions.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's jump into the first case, the candy bar conundrum. This one's about a divorced couple, Stacy and Omar, who are, well, basically at war over unpaid debts.
Yeah.
We're talking candy bars, phone bills, even a car loan gone wrong. It's a whole mess.
And it gets messy fast. Omar keeps saying that Stacy's a control freak and that he doesn't owe her a dime. But when you look closer, you see this pattern of him just like dodging responsibility. The car loan situation is a perfect example. He gets the car in the divorce, right? But then leaves Stacy to deal with the loan payments.
Yeah, and then, like, it couldn't get worse. The car gets totaled in an accident, and Stacy's forced to file for bankruptcy. I can practically see Judge Judy rolling her eyes when Omar tries to play the victim here.
Oh, totally. And Judge Judy doesn't just call him out. She goes deeper. She asks Omar, what kind of example are you setting for your children? So she's saying this isn't just about money. It's about, like, integrity and the impact your choices have on your family.
It really makes you think about, if Omar has ever actually stopped to consider the impact of his actions. Sure, maybe he thinks he's winning by not paying what he owes. But what about the damage to his relationships? Especially with his kids. How can they trust him or learn how to handle money responsibly if that's the example he's setting?
Exactly. Judge Judy's highlighting how Omar is just thinking about the short term. Could have some pretty serious consequences down the road. And not just with money, but, emotionally, and for his kids, too.
All right, so moving on from the candy bar chaos, we've got the Hawaii hustle, broken engagement, a whole lot of finger-pointing over finances, Carrie's suing her ex-fiancé, Joseph, for unpaid credit card charges. There's a trip to Hawaii that apparently they couldn't afford and even damage to her car.
This case really gets into something a lot of couples face nowadays, how to handle money before getting married. So Carrie's holding on to the engagement ring, right, as leverage because she claims Joseph owes her money. But then Judge Judy kind of throws a wrench in things by questioning why they even went on this fancy trip if they were already struggling financially.
Yeah, it's like she's saying, wait, you're racking up debt for a wedding, but fighting over a couple $100 now? It just doesn't track. And Judge Judy uses this to get into a whole conversation about finances in relationships.
Exactly. She's like, don't combine your finances before marriage. She even says couples should, take a page from those legally recognized relationships and keep separate accounts until they're actually married. It's pretty sound advice, especially when you see how messy things can get when emotions and money get mixed up.
For sure. It makes you think about all those unspoken expectations that can lead to trouble. Maybe Carrie assumed they were, like, financially all in once they were engaged, but Josie saw things differently. Without actually talking about it, it's a recipe for disaster.
Absolutely. And Judge Judy isn't just laying down the law. She's offering advice that could save couples a lot of heartache and financial stress, down the line.
All right, let's get to a case that takes a bit of a darker turn. Hush money or honest loan? Anthony's suing his ex-girlfriend Lorraine for an unpaid loan. But then Lorraine drops this bombshell. She claims the money was actually hush money after he assaulted her.
Yeah, this one really shows how what you see on the surface is sometimes just the beginning.
Yeah.
We're dealing with potential domestic violence, conflicting stories, and it's hard to tell what's truth and what's manipulation.
Yeah, the details are pretty disturbing. Lorraine shows photos of her injuries, and Anthony admits he's had anger problems in the past, even went to anger management. But he tries to make Lorraine sound, unstable by saying she attacked him first.
And then Lorraine shares her side, says he hit her multiple times, and you can see the injuries. It's really chilling because she talks about a pattern of violence in her past relationships. She was even shot by her ex-husband. It makes you wonder how someone ends up in these situations over and over.
It's heartbreaking, and it raises all these questions. Or like something deeper going on. It's a lot to unpack.
Definitely. And Judge Judy, with all these accusations flying around, ends up dismissing both claims. She warns Anthony about his anger and tells him to leave Laurent alone.
But she doesn't let Lorraine off the hook either. She acknowledges the abuse, but also questions why she keeps choosing abusive partners. It's like she's saying, you need to break this cycle for your own good.
It's tough, you know?
Yeah.
Because legally, there's not enough evidence to make a clear ruling. But Judge Judy goes beyond just the law and gives them both some life advice. She's basically saying, prioritize your safety and well-being.
It really makes you think about the limits of the legal system, you know? Sometimes the best outcome isn't about winning or losing, but recognizing a bad situation and getting out, even if it costs you money or leads to a legal battle.
Exactly. Judge Judy's kind of advocating for that in her own way. Sometimes the best form of justice is just protecting yourself.
Okay, so let's go from a relationship gone wrong to road rage gone wild. We've got pregnant at the pump, starts with a fight over, you guessed it, a gas pump, and escalates to an alleged assault.
This case is like a perfect example of how quickly things can get out of hand, you know?
Yeah.
How a tiny disagreement can blow up into something huge. We've got Eileen suing Shauna for assault. Eileen says she was choked and had her shirt ripped. Shauna says she was pregnant at the time and was just defending herself.
But here's the twist. Eileen had already pled guilty to assault in a previous hearing. So basically her current claim for damages is, well, it's invalid.
What's great is how Judge Judy uses humor to show how ridiculous this whole thing is. She points out that there's just no way Shauna, who was 100 pounds, started a fight with Eileen, who was 200 pounds and pregnant.
It's like, come on, ladies. Is a gas pump really worth all this drama? But beyond the funny part, Judge Judy's highlighting the importance of controlling your impulses. She calls out Shauna for contradicting her own plea and gives Eileen the money she was asking for.
It's a good reminder that your actions have consequences, and sometimes you need to just, pause and think before you react emotionally, especially when it comes to something as unpredictable as road rage, right?
Okay, last but not least, custody cash and a questionable loan. This one gets into the whole murky world of lending money to an ex, especially when child custody is involved. Mark loaned his ex-girlfriend Rhonda a good chunk of change for legal fees in her custody battle.
And now he wants it back, says it was a loan. Rhonda insists it was a gift. And to make things even stickier, Rhonda lost custody of her daughter, and she's unemployed right now.
And Mark says she promised to pay him back with child support money, which Judge Judy immediately knows is, well, not going to happen. You can practically see her thinking, honey, you're never seeing that money again. But the interesting part is how she figures out Mark's real motivation here.
Yeah, she totally sees through his whole loan story and thinks he was hoping to get back together with Rhonda. It shows how often people mix money and emotions and how that can lead to trouble.
She doesn't let Rhonda off scot-free, though. She says Rhonda does owe Mark something and tells her to take out a loan against her car to at least pay him back partially. It's like a reminder that even in personal relationships, you need to be clear about money to avoid these messes.
And it makes you think, how do you balance supporting someone you care about with protecting yourself financially? It's a tricky situation.
It is. Well, we've covered a lot, from candy bar debts to custody battles. It's amazing how these, what seem like small disagreements, can show us so much about human nature and how complicated relationships can be. We'll be right back with more Judge Judy wisdom after a quick break. Okay, so we're back and ready for more Judge Judy. And let me tell you, the drama just keeps coming. I'm seeing a theme here, you know? Like how easily a small disagreement can spiral into this full-blown courtroom spectacle.
Yeah, it's almost like people lose all sense of perspective when they step into that courtroom, you know? Maybe it's the pressure, maybe it's Judge Judy's that no-nonsense aura she has, but they end up revealing a lot more about themselves than they probably intended to.
And speaking of revealing, this next case, it involves a scratched truck, a 13-year-old, and some parents who are seriously in denial. He scratched his own car, it's called, and wow, it makes you wonder if some people ever actually grow up.
The denial in this one is just wild. You've got Steven, the truck owner, who claims 13-year-old Gina keyed his brand new truck, right? But Gina's parents are adamant that he's making it up. Even though, I mean, the evidence is pretty clear. They've got this, alternate reality going on where their precious little girl could never do such a thing.
They even accuse Stephen of chasing Gina and throwing rocks at her. It's like they're trying to, I don't know, deflect from their daughter's actions by throwing out the most outlandish accusations possible.
Yeah, like they think if they just say it loud enough at enough times that it'll somehow become true. But Judge Judy isn't buying it, not for a second. She sees right through their act,
Yeah.
And she points out how ridiculous it is that a grown man would purposely damage his own new truck.
Right. And then there's Gina's friend, Jessica. She tries to cover for Gina by saying they were just playing frisbee, right, with an aluminum can that accidentally hit the truck 3 times. I mean, seriously, who are they trying to fool?
This is where you really see Judge Judy's expertise. She's not just listening to their words. She's watching their body language, their tone of voice, even those tiny little micro expressions. And she can tell when someone's lying.
Oh, absolutely. She calls Jessica out for that blatant lie and ends up awarding Stephen the cost of repainting his truck, which is, get this, $1,300. Ouch! And she completely throws out the parents' counterclaim without even thinking twice.
Yeah, and it's a prime example of how parents can actually do more harm than good by trying to protect their kids from consequences, I mean, Gina might have gotten away with vandalism this time, but what lesson is that teaching her? It's not setting her up for success in the long run.
Definitely a tough lesson, but sometimes you got to learn the hard way that actions have consequences. And it's even harder when your own parents aren't helping you learn that, right?
Speaking of tough lessons, this next case brings up some interesting questions about the boundaries between, being helpful and enabling someone's behavior. A personal trainer and a broken heart. It's about Angela, a client, who's suing her former personal trainer, Matt, for a refund.
So Angela's saying Matt's training was, I don't know, subpar, and he never followed through on things he promised, like giving her a diet plan. Matt, of course, is arguing that his services are non-refundable and non-transferable.
But here's the kicker. It comes out that Matt was too busy sending Valentine's Day wishes to his girlfriend to actually, train his client. Talk about bad business practices.
And Judge Judy, always the pragmatist, just tells Matt straight up, like, if you want to be successful, cut your losses and give Angela her money back. She reminds him that an unhappy customer is bad news, especially for a personal trainer where, like, word of mouth is everything.
It's a good reminder that good customer service is key, and sometimes you got to put the client first, even if it means bending the rules of a contract a bit.
So in the end, Judge Judy gives Angela a partial refund. She takes out the cost of the 2 sessions Angela actually went to. Seems like a fair compromise. And it's a good learning experience for Matt on how to deal with a dissatisfied client, right?
From the gym, we head to, the suburbs, with a case that proves that even a simple swimming pool can cause major drama between neighbors. Flooded septic tank or fabricated flood, a classic story of how suspicion and mistrust can totally ruin a relationship.
So William drains his pool. The water naturally flows downhill onto his neighbor Betty's property. Betty claims this flooded her septic tank and ruined her carpet. William, being a nice guy, reimburses her for the damage.
But now William's suing to get his money back. He's convinced that Betty exaggerated the damage.
And it gets even more confusing when William's son Mitchell gets involved. Mitchell tells his biological dad, Billy, that Betty and her husband, Robert, purposely flooded their property to make the damage look worse.
It's a total he said, she said situation. Everyone's pointing fingers, accusing each other of lying.
Judge Judy, as always, is laser focused on the details. She questions Mitchell directly about what he saw, and you can tell he's really uncomfortable, clearly caught in the middle of his parents' drama, and you get the feeling he's not telling the whole story.
And then, bam, we get this truly disturbing revelation. Turns out Robert, the stepfather, has a history of, physically disciplining the kids, including Mitchell with a belt. Judge Judy's whole demeanor changes, This isn't just about a flooded septic tank anymore. It's about child safety.
Yeah, she expresses serious concern about the abuse allegations and ultimately decides to report it to Child Protective Services. It's a powerful reminder that Judge Judy's job goes beyond settling legal disputes. She's a strong advocate for kids, and she's not afraid to intervene if she thinks there's abuse going on.
This case also shows the tough spot kids are often put in when their parents are fighting. Mitchell, torn between loyalty and fear. He can't really speak freely about what really happened. It's heartbreaking to see the damage that these family conflicts can cause.
And then it gets even more complicated. We find out that Billy, Mitchell's biological father, hasn't been paying child support. Judge Judy doesn't hold back. She criticizes Billy for putting his son in this difficult position and really pushes him to meet his financial obligations.
Yeah, she makes this powerful point, saying that Billy not paying child support makes Robert feel like he has the right to discipline Mitchell, even physically. It's a stark reminder that parents need to support their kids, financially and emotionally, no matter what the relationship status is.
In the end, Judge Judy throws out William's claim for a refund. She says that Betty might have exaggerated the damage, but there's no way to separate the actual damage from any potential fabrication.
It's a messy situation with no easy answers. But Judge Judy's focus on the kids' well-being is a reminder that sometimes justice isn't just about, legal decisions. Sometimes it's about protecting those who are most vulnerable.
All right, let's switch gears a bit. We've got a case about a long-term relationship, some questionable financial decisions, and a lot of bling. Rims, stereos, and broken promises. It really digs into the complicated dynamics of a couple who clearly didn't talk about their expectations for money.
So we've got Keith. He's 39, a caregiver, and he's suing his ex-girlfriend, Jamie, for $2,500. He says it was a loan for new rims and a stereo for her car, and she was supposed to pay him back when she got her tax refund and a school check.
Yeah.
But Jamie insists those rims and that stereo were gifts.
And Keith says they were engaged, but Judge Judy, she's always skeptical, and she starts questioning Keith's reasons for giving such extravagant gifts, especially since he just bought himself a new Suburban with money he got from a lawsuit settlement.
Seems like Keith was more about showing off his newfound wealth than making a real commitment to Jamie.
And Jama, she never actually asked for the rims or the stereo, so she was hesitant to accept such expensive gifts, but Keith made it seem like, he was serious about their future together.
And Judge Judy, with her sharp wit and understanding of people, she calls Keith out for his immaturity and irresponsible spending. She basically tells him he should have invested that settlement money or saved it, not spent it on fancy cars and accessories.
She sees right through his whole loan story and dismisses his case, tells him to consider those rims and that stereo a parting gift.
It's a good reminder that showering someone with gifts, especially pricey ones, doesn't guarantee a relationship will last.
It's also a cautionary tale about being responsible with money no matter how old you are or what your relationship status is.
Okay, so from the city streets, let's head out to the California countryside. This case shows how even a simple horseback riding trip can turn into a confrontation with a really angry property owner.
Trail trouble.
It highlights respecting property lines and what can happen when a disagreement escalates.
So you've got Patricia with her son Trevor on an ATV and their two dogs. They're riding her horse along a trail that goes across Freeman's property. Freeman, who says Patricia has trespassed before, confronts her and things get heated fast. There's some yelling and then it gets physical.
Patricia claims Freeman assaulted her and Trevor and even tried to take one of their dogs. Freeman, though, insists that Patricia and Trevor were the aggressors, says Trevor kicked and punched him. So, yeah, another he said, she said situation.
Judge Judy, of course, focuses on the things that don't add up in their stories. She questions Trevor about what happened, and he admits his mom was already cursing at Freeman before any physical contact happened.
And Trevor also says they'd ridden on Freeman's property lots of times before. So maybe Freeman was reacting to past frustrations, but that still doesn't excuse his behavior.
Judge Judy, watching Trevor and listening to him, she concludes that Patricia started the fight with her aggressive behavior and bad language.
She also points out that there's no way Freeman, who's pretty slight, could physically pull Patricia off her horse. It just doesn't add up.
So Judge Judy dismisses both Patricia's claim and Freeman's counterclaim. She scolds Patricia for her temper and says they both could have avoided this whole mess by just being respectful and using better judgment.
It's a good reminder that even when you think you're in the right, staying calm and choosing your words carefully can prevent things from getting out of control.
Right, and it shows how important it is to be mindful of property boundaries and address any issues with your neighbors calmly and respectfully. Way better to have a conversation than a courtroom showdown.
Okay, so this next case is about a traffic incident that blows up into a battle of wills. And it's about differing opinions on, how to behave on the road. It's called road rage and a slap-happy driver. And it's like the perfect example of how easily people lose their cool when they're behind the wheel.
So Christine, who's a pedestrian, claims that Sylvia, the driver, honked at her and yelled at her while she was crossing the street. Sylvia, on the other hand, says Christine was walking really slowly and intentionally blocking her way.
Here's the twist, though. Christine admits she slapped Sylvia's car after Sylvia honked. And Judge Judy, She always gets a kick out of how ridiculous people can be, points out that Christine's reaction was not only childish, but dangerous, too.
She reminds Christine that Sylvia, as the driver, had to be careful and patient, especially around pedestrians. But she also criticizes Christine for overreacting, calls her slap-happy, and says she could have been seriously hurt acting like that.
And Judge Judy, she's really good at reading people, right? She says that Christine's behavior might be part of a bigger pattern of disrespect and not being considerate of others.
Yeah, she says Christine's insistence on staying in the middle of the road, even after Sylvia honked, shows a sense of entitlement and a disregard for basic traffic rules.
So, Judge Judy, she acknowledges that Sylvia could have handled things better, but she rules in Christine's favor and awards her $500 for her pain and suffering. But she makes it clear that Christine's actions contributed to the whole ordeal.
It's a good reminder that road rage often comes from impatience, a sense of entitlement, and not considering the other people on the road. We all got to share the road, both literally and figuratively, and that takes, some basic civility and courtesy.
Yeah, and Judge Judy's ruling shows that even when you think you're right, you still have to take responsibility for your actions. Christine's decision to retaliate against Sylvia because she thought Sylvia was being rude just made things worse. Led to a legal battle that could have been avoided with a little patience and understanding.
Okay, let's go from the open road to a cramped hotel room. This case is about a group of friends who end up in a financial dispute after a trip. Motel math and miscommunication. It highlights how important it is to be clear about money and make agreements, especially when you're dealing with friends.
So Amy is suing her former friend Justin because he didn't pay his share of a hotel room they shared with other friends during a 6-night trip. Amy says they all agreed to pay $175 each. But Justin says he only stayed one night, so he should only have to pay for that one night.
It gets pretty funny when Justin, who's a college student, struggles to do basic division in his head. It shows how even simple math can trip people up, especially when emotions and relationships get involved.
Judge Judy, always the practical one, cuts through the confusion and explains to Justin that the $175 was for his share of the whole 6-night trip, whether he was there the whole time or not. She even, walks him through the math to make sure he gets it.
Judge Judy, with her perfect mix of humor and common sense, throws out Justin's argument and awards Amy $145. She takes out the $30 he already paid. It's a fair decision, and Justin gets a good lesson on splitting expenses in the future, right?
It really underlines how important it is to communicate clearly and ideally even get things in writing when you're splitting costs with friends. It can prevent misunderstandings and maybe even save some friendships.
Okay, now we're moving on to a case that deals with a broken engagement, a generous ex-boyfriend, and a cosmetic procedure. It brings up some serious questions about consent and financial responsibility. Beauty, fear, and a motorcycle Romeo. Takes us into the complicated world of a relationship that ends with accusations of manipulation and fear.
Yeah, this one's interesting. Brian's suing his former fiancée, Danielle, to get back the money he paid for her breast enlargement surgery while they were dating. He says it was a loan, $4,500, to be paid back over time. Danielle says it was a gift.
And Judge Judy, always a bit suspicious of those grand romantic gestures that don't come with a clear agreement, she questions Brian's motives for paying for such a personal and expensive procedure. I mean, it's one thing to buy flowers or jewelry, but a surgery, that's a whole other level.
Danielle says she didn't really want the surgery at first, but Brian pressured her, made it seem like it was a way to be more beautiful for him. Makes you wonder if she really felt like it was her choice, or if she felt forced into it.
And it gets even more complicated. We find out Danielle made a few payments to Brian after they broke up, but then stopped. She claims she was scared because Brian was acting really erratic.
She describes Brian as controlling and obsessive, says he was constantly driving by her house and work, harassing her friends, and basically making her feel unsafe. Makes you wonder why she didn't report him to the police if she was truly afraid.
Yeah. Judge Judy, who always champions women's safety and their right to make their own choices, is concerned about Danielle's allegations. But she also senses some manipulation on both sides. She says the fact that Danielle made payments to Brian after they broke up suggests that maybe she felt obligated to pay back the loan.
So Judge Judy, in her signature no-nonsense style, she cuts through all the emotions and legal stuff. She rules in Brian's favor, awards him $4,000, part of the original loan.
She says that Brian's behavior after the breakup was inappropriate and could be considered harassment, but it doesn't change the fact that Danielle has a financial obligation.
This is a good reminder that even though gifts, especially big ones, should be given freely. It's still important to be clear about the terms, especially when a lot of money is involved.
It also shows how important it is to set boundaries in relationships and get help if those boundaries are crossed.
Yeah.
If someone's making you feel unsafe, you got to involve the authorities.
It's also a reminder that when you're making big financial decisions, especially about things like medical procedures, you got to really think about your motivations and make sure you're not being pressured or manipulated.
All right, let's look at another case about the fallout of a broken relationship. This one's called A Loan, a Gift, or a Ticket to Reconciliation. It's about Lyell, who says her ex-partner Daniel owes her money for 2 loans.
The first loan, $2,000, was to help Daniel buy a new truck. He said he needed it for their daughter's safety. The second loan, $750, was to cover emergency dental work for Daniel.
But Daniel says both were gifts, given freely by Lyell, no strings attached. Claims he was going to pay for the truck with a post-dated check, but Lyell offered to put it on her credit card instead.
And Judge Judy, always wary of those convenient memory lapses, she questions Daniel's story.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not every day that someone casually mentions needing to write a post-dated check for a big purchase if they weren't actually asking for help, right?
Yeah, Judge Judy thinks Daniel, who is struggling financially and behind on child support, might have played Lyell, who is still emotionally attached even though they were separated.
It's a classic case of someone taking advantage of kindness and hoping to get away with it.
Judge Judy, she's got that way of cutting through the BS, calls Daniel out for his slick behavior.
She says that Daniel's claim that the $750 dental loan was also a gift, well, that's just ridiculous, especially since he hadn't even paid back the truck loan yet.
Judge Judy's a big advocate for financial responsibility, especially when it comes to taking care of kids. She lectures Daniel about not taking responsibility and for using Lyell's generosity.
And finally, Judge Judy rules in Lyell's favor, orders Daniel to pay back $2,750, part of the original loan. It's a reminder that you need clear communication and written agreements when it comes to money, even after a relationship is over.
And it's also a reminder that sometimes people mistake generosity for weakness, and it's important to protect yourself financially, even from people you trusted.
All right, let's head to the hockey rink. This case is about where to draw the line between playing hard and intentionally hurting someone in sports. It's called hockey heat and a helmet to the head.
So Ronan, a 20-year-old hockey player, says Anthony, a player on the other team, attacked him after a game. Says Anthony punched him in the face, knocked off his helmet, and made him fall and sprain his ankle.
But Anthony argues that Ronan started it by refusing to shake hands with the other team after the game and yelling insults at him.
And it gets even messier when we find out Ronan's brother got into a fight with Anthony during the game. So, obviously, Ronan was already angry.
Judge Judy, she loves to dissect human behavior, right?
Mm-hmm.
She questions both players about what happened, paying close attention to their body language and whether their stories make sense.
People from both teams give different accounts of what went down. One person says Ronan was the aggressor, but someone else backs up Ronan, saying Anthony was the one who got physical first.
Judge Judy, after hearing everyone's testimony and watching how they act, decides that both players are at fault for the fight.
She agrees that Anthony shouldn't have confronted Ronan about his poor sportsmanship, especially after such a heated game.
But she also says that Ronan refusing to shake hands and yelling at Anthony created a hostile environment that led to things escalating.
Judge Judy, never one to sugarcoat things, tells Ronan he got the worst of the deal because he ended up with a sprained ankle.
She throws out Ronan's case, saying that even though violence is never okay, both players played a role in the fight.
It shows how important sportsmanship is. It's not just about playing fair, it's about how you act on and off the field, or ice, in this case. You got to keep your cool and respect your opponents, even when things get intense.
It's also a reminder that sometimes the best thing to do is walk away from a tense situation, even if it means swallowing your pride. It's better than getting into trouble.
All right, last case for this Judge Judy marathon. Stolen wallet, questionable spending, and a relationship that ends in betrayal and a legal battle.
Missing money and a bed of lies. It's about trust, accountability, and where to draw the line in a relationship. Jay's suing his ex-fiancée, Darlene, for stealing money from his wallet while he was in jail, and he wants that engagement ring back.
Jay says that when he was arrested, Darlene took $2,300 from his wallet, money he got from selling his truck, and she spent it without asking him. Darlene admits to taking the money, but says she used it to pay bills while Jay was locked up.
She says Jay hadn't made any arrangements for the mortgage or anything before he got arrested, so she had no choice but to use the money from his wallet.
Judge Judy, always skeptical of those convenient excuses, pushes Darlene for details about what bills she paid and if she has any receipts.
And surprise, surprise, Darlene can't produce any documentation. Makes Judge Judy even more suspicious that the money maybe went towards something other than essential bills.
Judge Judy, always sharp and insightful, looks closer at their relationship. And she finds out that even after Darlene allegedly stole the money, Jay continued to live with her for weeks after he was released. Even slept in the same bed.
It's a weird detail that makes you wonder if maybe Jay forgave Darlene for taking the money, especially if it helped keep their home going while he was away.
Things get even more complicated when Jay demands the engagement ring back, but Darlene says she lost it. And of course, she has no proof of purchase or anything. It's just one inconsistency after another.
Judge Judy, with her quick wit and wisdom, calls Darlene out for her shady behavior and lack of accountability.
She dismisses Jay's case, arguing that because he kept living with Darlene after the alleged theft, he basically condoned her actions.
It shows how actions speak louder than words, right? Even unspoken forgiveness can make legal matters messy.
Judge Judy advises Jay to move on from the relationship and consider it an expensive lesson about trust and setting boundaries.
This case really highlights the issues of dealing with money in a relationship, especially when trust is broken. It's a reminder that you need clear communication and a good understanding of financial responsibilities to avoid these messy situations.
Okay, from the drama of relationships and money, let's head out to the open water. This case is about a jet ski accident, questions about insurance, and a friend who might not be so friendly after all.
Wiped out on the water. It's a classic example of how fun activities can turn into legal nightmares, especially when it's not clear who's responsible and insurance gets involved.
Amy's suing her ex-boyfriend Justin for damage to her Sea-Doo after he got into an accident while riding it. Another jet ski rider, Stevie, ran into Justin, causing a lot of damage. Justin says it was Stevie's fault and that Amy should have had insurance on her Sea-Doo since she often let other people use it.
And then, things change. When Stevie admits to hitting Justin's jet ski, says it was an accident. But Judge Judy, she's not one to take things at face value. She starts digging deeper, trying to figure out what really happened.
Under Judge Judy's tough questioning, Stevie spills the beans. Says he was tailgating Justin and hit his wake, making Justin lose control and crash into Amy's Sea-Doo.
So it's Stevie's fault. But then the focus shifts to insurance. Justin, trying to get out of paying anything, says he doesn't remember the details of his insurance and if it covers damage to other watercraft.
Judge Judy's not buying Justin's convenient memory lapse. She tells him to give Amy his driver's license and contact info so she can file a claim with his insurance company.
She dismisses the case against Justin, making clear that Stevie's the one who has to either pay for the damage or get his insurance involved. It's a reminder that accidents can happen anywhere, and having the right insurance is crucial.
It also shows how important it is to be careful and follow safety rules when you're doing risky things. Being aware of your surroundings and understanding that your actions have consequences can prevent accidents from happening in the first place.
And that wraps up our deep dive into Judge Judy's world. We've seen it all, from small arguments to serious accusations, from money problems to relationship drama.
These cases are definitely entertaining, but they also give us a glimpse into what it means to be human. They remind us that every choice matters, and navigating life's complexities takes wisdom, maturity, and a willingness to learn from our mistakes.
And Judge Judy, she's got a knack for cutting through the BS and getting to the heart of the matter. She often reveals the underlying issues of character, accountability, and the consequences of making bad choices.
Yeah, she's like a human lie detector. She sees right through those facades and gets to the truth.
Exactly. And she does it all with this sharp wit and no-nonsense attitude that makes her so captivating. Even if you don't always agree with her, you got to respect her. She's like a modern-day philosopher, using these everyday conflicts to teach us valuable life lessons.
So as you go about your day, think about Judge Judy's wisdom. Think before you act, communicate clearly, and always, always read the fine print. And hey, maybe channel a little bit of that Judge Judy attitude when you need to stand up for yourself or hold someone accountable, right?
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time for another fascinating look at the human experience.
It's wild, isn't it? how these cases, they start with something so small, but they end up showing us so much about, like, what makes us human.
I know, right? What gets me is how Judge Judy she cuts through all the noise and gets to the real issue,
Yeah.
She's got this way of exposing problems with people's character, their sense of responsibility, and the consequences of their actions.
It's like she's got a built-in BS detector or something, sees right through people's acts and gets to the heart of the matter.
Exactly. That sharp wit and that no-nonsense style, it makes her so compelling to watch, even if you don't always agree with her rulings. It's like she's a modern-day philosopher, using these everyday disputes to teach us about life.
Okay, so we've got one more case to unpack before we wrap up this deep dive. And this one, it involves a jet ski accident, some iffy insurance coverage, and a friend who, well, might not be such a good friend after all.
Wiped out on the water. It's a classic example of how something that's supposed to be fun can turn into a legal mess, especially when it's not clear who's to blame and insurance gets involved.
So we've got Amy suing her ex-boyfriend Justin for damages to her Sea-Doo after he had an accident while riding it. Another jet ski rider, Stevie, ran into Justin, causing a lot of damage. Justin's arguing that it was Stevie's fault and that Amy should have had insurance on her Sea-Doo because she let other people use it pretty often.
And then things take a turn when Stevie admits he hit Justin's jet ski. He says it was an accident. But Judge Judy, always skeptical, she digs deeper, wants to find out what really caused the crash.
And under Judge Judy's questioning, Stevie finally tells the truth. Says he was tailgating Justin and hit his wake, which made Justin lose control and slam into Amy's Sea-Doo.
So Stevie's the one responsible for the accident. But then the whole thing shifts to insurance. Justin, trying to get out of paying, says he's not sure about his insurance and if it covers damage to other jet skis.
And, of course, Judge Judy's not impressed by Justin's sudden memory loss. She tells him to give Amy his driver's license and contact info so she can file a claim with his insurance company.
She dismisses the case against Justin, making it clear that Stevie's responsible now. He either has to pay for the damage or get his insurance company involved. It's a good reminder that accidents can happen, and having the right insurance is so important.
Absolutely, and it shows how important it is to be cautious and follow safety rules, especially when you're doing things that could be dangerous. If you're aware of what's going on around you and you think about the consequences of your actions, you can prevent a lot of accidents from happening in the first place. And that, my friend, brings us to the end of our Judge Judy journey. We've seen a lot, haven't we? From silly arguments to serious accusations, money troubles, relationship drama, the whole shebang.
It's amazing, right, how these cases, even though they're often pretty entertaining, they really give us a glimpse into what it means to be human. They remind us that everything we do has an impact, and to handle life's ups and downs, we need wisdom, maturity, and the ability to learn from our mistakes.
So as you go about your day, remember what Judge Judy taught us. Think before you act, communicate clearly, and don't forget to read the fine print. And hey, maybe channel a little bit of that Judge Judy attitude when you need to stand up for yourself or hold someone accountable.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time for another fascinating look at the human experience. All right, so we've been doing all these deep dives into all sorts of fascinating topics. But this time, I think we're going somewhere a little different. A place you might not expect to find. Deep insights and thought-provoking stuff.
I'm intrigued. Where are we headed?
We're going into Judge Judy's courtroom.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that iconic TV judge with the no-nonsense attitude and the quick wit.
I never thought of her as, like, deep dive material, but I'm listening.
Yeah, so we've been looking at some analysis of her show.
Okay.
And honestly, I was surprised by how much there is to unpack here.
So it's more than just like small claims court drama.
Way more.
All right, you've got my attention. What kind of insights are we talking about?
Well, for one thing, it's fascinating how Judge Judy's cases, they seem kind of mundane on the surface, right?
Yeah.
Like, arguments over parking spots or a broken lamp or whatever. But they actually tap into these universal conflicts.
Oh, I see.
Things that so many of us can relate to on some level.
Okay, yeah, like what?
Well, disputes between exes,
Sure.
family feuds, friend fallouts, all that kind of stuff. It's like she's holding up a mirror to everyday life.
But with a gavel.
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
like that.
And that's a big part of the appeal, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this heightened version of of stuff we've all dealt with.
Right. And Judge Judy's whole demeanor, that no-nonsense attitude,
Oh, yeah.
cutting through excuses, demanding accountability.
It's almost cathartic to watch, isn't it?
It really is. Like, it makes you feel like there is such a thing as justice.
Right, right. Especially in a world where it often feels like things are so chaotic and unfair.
Totally. You know, in our own lives, we might deal with conflicts that just drag on forever,
Oh, yeah.
and we end up feeling frustrated and powerless.
Hmm.
But Judge Judy's courtroom, it's like this fantasy of resolution. Things are decided quickly and decisively.
And I think that's a big part of why people are so drawn to her.
It definitely is.
I mean, it's entertaining on a basic level,
Of course.
but there's also this deeper satisfaction
Mm-hmm.
of seeing justice served.
Yeah.
And the way she does it, it's almost like a performance.
Oh, absolutely.
Her sharp wit, the way she delivers those pointed remarks, it's like she's combining, legal expertise
Right.
with comedic timing.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so compelling to watch.
Hmm.
The cases themselves, like you said, they often seem, pretty ordinary.
Yeah.
But if you look closer, they touch upon some pretty fundamental human experiences.
Oh, for sure.
Love, betrayal, financial struggles, these things that we all encounter in different ways.
Yeah. It makes the show relatable, even if the specifics of the cases are, completely out there.
Exactly. And that brings me to another point that was highlighted in the analysis we read. It's not just about the entertainment value or the legal outcomes. It's also about the life lessons that Judge Judy imparts.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. She's always got something to say.
She does. And even though her advice is often unsolicited, it can be surprisingly insightful.
It's true. It's true.
She's not just settling disputes. She's offering guidance. She's encouraging people to take responsibility for their actions, to think about the consequences of their choices.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember this one case. A woman sued her neighbor because their dog kept digging up her prize-winning roses.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and the neighbor's defense was basically, well, it's a dog, what do you expect?
Oh, come on.
Right. But Judge Judy wasn't having any of it. She was like, I expect you to be a responsible pet owner.
Haha. Good for her.
And she awarded the woman damages not just for the roses, but also for the emotional distress caused by the whole ordeal.
Wow.
It was brilliant. And
Mhm.
and it wasn't just about the roses. It was about, like you said, taking responsibility, even if your dog is the one causing the trouble.
Exactly. And that's a lesson that applies to so many situations in life.
It really does. So it's like by watching Judge Judy, we're not just being entertained, we're actually learning something.
We are. We're getting insights into human behavior, into the legal system, and maybe even some practical wisdom for navigating our own conflicts.
It's amazing, really. I never thought I'd be saying this, but Judge Judy might actually be making us better people.
Well, maybe not better people, but definitely more informed and aware. The popularity of her show and other courtroom shows, it speaks volumes about our fascination with conflict, with justice, with this desire for order in a world that often feels very chaotic.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
It's like we're drawn to these stories because they offer us a glimpse of a world where things are clear-cut, where right and wrong are easily defined, and where justice prevails.
And maybe, just maybe, we can take a little bit of that Judge Judy wisdom and apply it to our own lives.
Right, like maybe be a little more direct, a little less willing to accept excuses.
Exactly. So the next time you find yourself, channel surfing and you land on Judge Judy,
Yep.
maybe pay a little closer attention. You might be surprised by what you learn.
Couldn't agree more. Because beneath the surface of those seemingly trivial cases lies a fascinating reflection of human nature and the enduring power of justice, all delivered with a side of sharp-witted commentary.
And that's what keeps us coming back for more.
It certainly does, and that's something worth thinking about, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.